Shalom Alachim, and welcome back to the broadcast Peace Be Upon You. I'm Sean, your host, and the website can be found at www.scriptureandprophecy.com. We are resuming our Torah portion study for this week, and this week it's called Miketz, which means the end. And the title comes from the very first verse of the reading, which says, "Now it happened at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream." And so this portion begins with Pharaoh having this dream and Joseph interpreting it and kind of rising to power. It also has the part where Joseph's brothers go into Egypt because there's a great famine in the land and they need the food, and then they have this confrontation with Joseph, and he kind of tests, he kind of engineers this way of testing his brother's character to see if maybe they've changed, if they've grown any since the time when they wronged him. And so it's a very, very interesting, very moving story in that. So it's Genesis chapter 41 through Genesis chapter 44. And it kind of ends with Joseph detaining Benjamin. And so that's what we're going to cover today. I am going to read from the Sefer this morning, and still kind of feeling this version out. We won't be permanently reading from it or anything, but there is some things that I definitely love about it, that it shows you that you would never know unless you read Hebrew or something of that nature, because and they do a better job with certain things that are just a better translation of the Hebrew word than, say, like the Hallelujah Scriptures does. One example would be in the Hallelujah Scriptures, it would always say Ruach. It would say the Ruach HaKodesh, which means the Spirit, the Holy, when really it should just be translated the Ruach Kodesh or the Ruach Elohim instead of that Ha in there, because the Ha is this. They're adding the word the in there twice by keeping that part in there. Little things like that that just demonstrate that the difference between a translation done by a real Hebrew scholar versus someone who is just using some find and replace programs. Not to say that I don't enjoy the Holy Scriptures, because I do. Just making some little comparisons here. For me, the King James Bible is still king for English, and the Hebrew Bible is king for Hebrew. And so when we blend the two together, it's never really perfect. Anyway, that's a rant for another day. Let's begin chapter 41, Genesis chapter 41, verse 1 through Genesis chapter 44, verse 1. And it came to pass, at the end of 2 full years, that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and flat-fleshed, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored, lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. The ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept, and he dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain came up upon one stalk, and rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his ruach, that is to say spirit, was troubled. And he sent and he called for the magicians of Mitzrayim, that is to say Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them this dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spoke the chief butler unto the Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servant, and put me in ward, and the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed in one night, I and he, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Ivri, that is to say, Hebrew, servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto my office, and him he hanged. And Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. Elohim shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of a river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored. And they fed in the meadow, and behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I have never saw in the land of Mitzrayim before for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. When they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I woke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin and blasted, with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. Elohim has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. The 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What Elohim is about to do shows unto Pharaoh. Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Mitzrayim, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by the reason of the famine following it should be very grievous. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by Elohim, and Elohim will shortly bring it to pass. That's interesting. Let's make a mental note here. Joseph is telling Pharaoh, listen, the reason why you had the double dream, why you had the dream this twice, is Elohim is saying, this is not just a dream, this is surely going to come to pass. That's why you had the dream twice. Interesting. Verse 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Mitzrayim. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Mitzrayim in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up grain under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them guard food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine which shall be in the land of Mitzrayim. Let the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And the Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this? A man in whom the Ruach Elohim is, that is to say, the Spirit of God? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as Elohim has shown you all this, there is none so discreet and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and according to your word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the house will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and he put it on Joseph's hand, and he arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a golden chain about his neck. And he made him ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. I gotta pause for a moment because I think we can overlook the significance of this. Here we have Joseph went through all this trial, but yet remained faithful to God. He's thrown in a pit, sold to the Ishmaelites, and then sold into slavery to the Egyptians. But then God gives him favor in Potiphar's house. And then Potiphar's wife tries to seduce Joseph every day, the scriptures say. And to the point where he flees from this. Instead of indulging in the sin, he flees from it, leaving his garment behind. Then he's accused of rape, which he did not commit, and he's thrown into prison. But even imprisoned, he finds favor in the eyes of the captain. And the captain appoints him ruler, as this overseer inside the jail itself. And then he has this moment where he's standing before Pharaoh, and instead of saying, yeah, I can interpret your dream because I'm so special, he says, I can't do anything about this, but Elohim can. And he interprets the dream, and now here he is. The Pharaoh says, you will be ruler over all the land, only I myself will be more powerful than you. And Joseph finds himself going from being in a pit and sold into slavery to the most powerful man, save Pharaoh, really probably on planet Earth. But not because God wanted to just lift him up and give him power, but so that God could use Joseph to save lives, because a great famine is coming. Let's continue on, verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, without you shall no man lift up his hand or his foot in all the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Sophatneth Panech, and he gave him to be his woman Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. And Joseph went over all the land of Mitzrayim. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. In the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by the handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Mitzrayim. He laid up the food in the cities, and the food in the fields which was round about every city, and he laid up the same. And Joseph gathered grain as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Elohim said, He has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. For the name of the second he called Ephraim. I think that's interesting. Joseph is acknowledging that he went through suffering, and he even names his son Manasseh, which means, for Elohim said, He has made me forget all of my toil and all of my father's house. And the name of the second son he called Ephraim, for Elohim has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And 7 years of plentiness was in the land of Mitzrayim were ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the famine was in all the lands, and all the land of Mitzrayim there was bread. And when all the land of Mitzrayim was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Mitzrayim, Go unto Joseph. What he says to you, do. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto Mitzrayim, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Mitzrayim. And all the countries came into Mitzrayim to Joseph for to buy grain, because the famine was so sore in all the lands. Now here it goes as far as to say that the famine was all over the entire earth. And so peoples from all over the planet had to come to Joseph, the most powerful man on the face of the earth. Everyone has to come to him for food. is it possible that because of the great task that God had for Joseph, this incredible thing that he would have to do, that he would have to use great wisdom and great character and to be upright and fair, maybe he needed to suffer these things to make his character to be what he had to be when God needed to use him. Could it be so in our lives as well, that we go through these things, we think they're unfair, and we think, God, why would you allow such a horrible thing in my life? But you see, sometimes I think God is less interested in how happy we are in the moment and more interested in making us into the person we need to be to do the thing God has for us to do. And likewise, he wants us to make us the person we need to be before we enter into the kingdom. There's purpose in our suffering that maybe we don't understand. Do you think that Joseph thought, as he was being thrown into the pit and sold into slavery years before this, that he would become the most powerful man on planet Earth? Of course not. But you see, he upheld his character, and he continued to walk in righteousness and holiness, resisting temptation to the point of fleeing from it, and demonstrated to God that he is trustworthy, that he will walk in righteousness whether things are good or bad. And the whole world needed Joseph. Let's continue on. We still have chapter 42 and 43 to read. Chapter 42, verse 1. Now when Yaakov saw that there was grain in Mitzrayim, Yaakov said unto his sons, Why do you look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Mitzrayim. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy grain in Mitzrayim. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Yaakov sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest perchance mischief befall him. And we got to stop. Not only was there the favoritism for Joseph, but there's also the favoritism for Benjamin, both sons being from Rachel. Interesting. He's like, hey, you guys, you 10, go to Mitzrayim, go to Egypt and buy grain, but not Benjamin. Not Benjamin. Why? Because I don't want anything to happen to him. Interesting. Let's continue. And the sons of Israel came to buy grain among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and he spoke roughly unto them, and he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and he said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land, ye are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are your servants come. We are all one man's sons, and we are true men. Your servants are no spies. Verse 12. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, Your servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spoke unto you, saying, Ye are spies. Hereby you shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, O surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto the 3rd day, This do, and live, for I fear Elohim. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry grain for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are truly guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spoke I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and you would not hear? Therefore also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spoke unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them and wept. And he returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Shimeon, and bound him before their eyes. Now we have to stop and understand the picture that's happening. Joseph is standing there, and he's witnessing his brothers acknowledge their offense against him. But they don't realize it's Joseph, and they don't even realize that he can understand them because he's using an interpreter to speak to them, even though he clearly speaks Hebrew. He just, he's trying to test them. And he actually hears them express regret for what they did to their brother, what they did to him. And even Reuben's like, Didn't I tell you not to do this? And he's watching them acknowledge that that particular sin is why they're in the predicament that they're in. And of course, it warms his heart. He turns away to weep. And then he keeps Shimeon, and he sends the others away and commands him to return with their younger brother, Benjamin. Of course, he wants to see his younger brother, his full brother, not half, and who had nothing to do with the offense. Let's continue on, verse 25. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with grain, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provisions for the way. And thus did he unto them, and they ladded their asses with the grain, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money, for behold, it was in the sack's mouth. And he said unto his brother, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, What is it that Elohim has done unto us? And they came unto Yaakov, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly unto us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, We are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father, one is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the Lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that you are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take the food for the famine of your household, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that you are no spies, but you are true men. So I will deliver you, your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Yaakov their father said unto them, Me have you bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, Shimeon is not, and you will take Benjamin away? All these things are against me. And Reuben spoke unto his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to you, to deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to you again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow in Sheol. Chapter 43. And the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought out of Mitzrayim, their father said unto them, Go again, buy us a little food. And Yehudah spoke unto him, saying, The man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, Ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, Ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Yisrael said, Wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, The man asked straitly of our state and of our kindred, saying, Is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, Bring your brother down? And Yehuda said unto El Yisrael, his father, Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shall you require him. If I bring him not unto you, and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned the second time. And their father Yisrael said unto them, If it must be so now, do this. Take of the best fruits of the land of your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks, carry it again in your hand, perchance it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise, and go unto the man, and El Shaddai give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother, and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And the men took that present, and they took double money in their hand, and Benjamin, and rose up and went down to Mitzrayim, and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, Bring these men home, and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon. And the men did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men unto Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, Because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time, we are brought in, that he may seek occasion against us, and fall upon us, and take us for bondmen, and our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house. And they said, O sir, we came indeed down the first time to buy food, and it came to pass, when we came to the inn, that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. And he said, Peace be to you. Fear not, for your Elohim and the Elohim of your father has given you treasure in your sack. I had your money. And he brought Shimeon out unto them. And the man brought the men unto Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and gave their asses provender. And they made ready the present against Joseph. Came at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked him of their welfare, and he said, Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he yet alive? And they answered, Your servant, our father, is in good health, and yet he is alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes, and he saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. And he said, Is this your younger brother, of whom ye spoke unto me? And he said, Elohim be gracious unto you, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his heart did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chamber, and he wept there, and he washed his face. And he went out, and refrained himself, and said, Set on bread. And they set on for him by himself, for them by themselves, and for the Mitzrayim, which did eat with him. And by themselves, because of the Mitzrayim might not eat bread with the Ibrim, for that is an abomination unto the Mitzrayim. In other words, the Egyptians, there was Egyptians there eating with them, but they sat separately because for whatever reason, it's an abomination to the Egyptians to eat with the Hebrews. Verse 33, And they set before him the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled at one another. Now, this is easy to miss. What we see happening here is Joseph sat them in order of their age, in order of when they were born. And so they're marveling at this, like, how did he know which one of us is what? You know, how did he know who was born first to put us in this correct order? Of course, we know as the reader, obviously it's because he's their brother. Verse 34, And he took and set messes unto them before them, but Benjamin's mess was 5 times much more of any of theirs. And they drank, and they were merry with him. Last verse. It's actually verse 1 of chapter 44. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, filled the man's sacks with food, as much money as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. And that is the end of our Torah portion for this morning. Or actually, you know what? It's supposed to go to verse 17, not verse 1. Let's continue on. Sorry about that. Verse 2. And he put my cup to the silver cup in the sack's mouth, and the youngest and his grain money. And he did according to the word of Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city, and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, Up, follow after the men. And when you do overtake them, say unto them, Wherefore have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinks, and whereby indeed he divines? Ye have done evil in so doing. And he overtook them, and he spoke to them these words. And they said unto him, Wherefore says my Lord these words? Far be it that your servants should do according to this thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sacks' mouths we brought again unto you of the land of Canaan. How then shall we steal out of your Lord's house silver or gold? With whomsoever of your servant it be found, both let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondmen. And he said, Now let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and ye shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched, beginning with the eldest, and left the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they rent their clothes, and they laded every man on his asses, and returned to the city. And Yehuda and his brother came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that you have done? Know you not as such a man I can certainly divine? And Yehuda said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? Elohim has found out the iniquity of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we, and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, Far be it that I should do so, but the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get up, go in peace unto your father. And that is the end of the portion. And so it ends with Joseph detaining Benjamin as he put his cup in their bags. But this is all part of the plan, as we will see when we move forward into the story. Well, I hope that you were blessed by this reading this morning and by this study. And I hope that I did it justice. It's not always easy to read for 30 to 40 minutes without making some stumblings here and there. But more importantly, I just pray that the Spirit of God is upon the readings, and that you're being moved, and that it's helping you to draw closer to God and to His Son, and just helping you with faith and your knowledge of the Scriptures. And, I'm nothing special. I don't even think of myself as a teacher, or I definitely don't think of myself as a preacher. I'm just a scholar of biblical text, and I like to do the studies, and I like to share them with all of you, in hopes that it will bless you and pierce your hearts and again, cause you to draw closer to God and to fall on your knees before His Son, Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah. I want to thank all of you for your support. The year is ending soon. It's December 27th. It's hard to believe. And I just thank you for your prayers and thank you for your financial support. If you want to help support this work that's being done here, you can do so by going to scriptureandprophecy.com. And there's a donate tab, or you can become a monthly Patreon subscriber. But it's at the very top. It says donate and support. Also on YouTube, all the links are in the description. And so there you have it. That is all I have for you this morning. I would really like, before the weekend's over, to get the gospel, the gospel and the prophets portion out. Both of them very short, so maybe I can find time Sunday morning to do a short podcast to get those out to you as well. But I wanted to make sure that without a doubt we got our Torah portion out for the week. And so that is all I have for you this morning. Peace and grace be with all of you. And until next time, God bless.